The heat in Lagos wasn't just from the sun. It was from the tension hanging in the air at Adafemi Holdings, one of Nigeria's largest family-run businesses. Men in suits buzzed around with urgency, women in heels clacked across marble floors. And somewhere near the back entrance, a janitor in a faded blue uniform dragged his mop along the hallway like he had nothing to prove. And he didn't, because he already had everything. Tunde Adafemi, first son of the powerful business tycoon. Chief Olalekan Adafemi had more money in his bank account than half the staff combined. But no one knew that. They only knew the janitor who barely spoke, kept his eyes low, and carried a battered lunchbox that smelled of egusi soup and week-old rice. Tunde didn't mind. In fact, he chose this. After years of watching people flock to him for his name, not his heart, he made a deal with his father. Let me work in the company at the bottom. No one knows who I am. Let me see how real people live, how they treat each other, how they treat someone with nothing. His father had laughed. So you want to look for love among the cleaners and assistants? Tunde, you are not poor. Don't act like it's a game. But it wasn't a game to him. He was tired of fake smiles, of women who wore love like makeup, easily wiped off once the cameras stopped flashing. He wanted something real, even if it meant scrubbing floors to find it. And then she appeared. Amaka, sharp-tongued, gorgeous, worked in the PR department. The type who wore heels like weapons and had a glare that could cut through concrete. She never looked twice at the janitors. In fact, she barely looked once. Tunde noticed her the day she shouted at a secretary for delivering a coffee without almond milk. He was walking past with a mop bucket, and she turned to him with a raised brow. "Hey, mop boy," she snapped. "You missed a spot by the conference room, or is that too complicated for you?" Tunde nodded slowly, biting his tongue. He'd been rich long enough to know how much pride the poor carried just to survive. But he'd also learned how brutal the world was to people who looked like they had nothing to offer. Every day after that, she found new ways to taunt him. Sometimes it was his clothes. Sometimes it was his silence. Once, when he accidentally spilled water near her desk, she called him an embarrassment in overalls. Yet still, something about her made his heart do small, annoying flips. She was proud, yes. Arrogant, definitely. But behind her confidence, he saw sadness. Deep, buried like bones beneath a mansion. She worked late, ate alone, faked smiles in the presence of bosses, and sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, she wiped tears as quietly as a ghost. One day, their worlds collided for real. She stormed out of a meeting in tears, something about a failed campaign and a client pulling out. She didn't see him standing near the stairwell. She sat on a bench by the back entrance, mascara running, her shoulders shaking. He hesitated, then walked over. Without saying a word, he offered her the bottle of water from his lunchbox. She looked at it, looked at him, and laughed bitterly. "Don't think being kind will make you anything more than what you are. This company wasn't built for people like you." He smiled quietly. "Maybe it was built for people exactly like me." She blinked. The softness of his voice caught her off guard. No man had ever looked at her that gently. No man without money had ever dared to look at her like that. She took the water. Didn't say thank you, but she didn't insult him either. That was how it began. Not with roses. Not with poetry. Just a bottle of water and a lie that would shake both their worlds. The next day, Tunde showed up at work like nothing happened. Same worn-out overalls, same mop in hand, same quiet expression that made it easy for people to ignore him. But Amaka didn't ignore him anymore. She didn't say hello, of course. That would have bruised her pride. But her eyes followed him a little longer in the hallway. And when someone laughed at him for smelling like bleach, she didn't. Join in small shifts, Tunde noticed. He noticed everything. Later that afternoon, he was mopping near the elevator when he heard her voice again, sharp as ever but cracked around the edges. "I'm not going to beg that fool. Let him pull the contract. We'll survive. There she was, phone in one hand, pacing in those dangerously high heels, a bottle of Lucozade tucked under her arm. Her face looked exhausted, her usual perfection fading at the edges. Maybe if you focused on fixing the PR disaster instead of blaming everyone else? A man's voice cut through the hallway. Uche, the department head. Everyone knew he hated Amaka's guts. Rumor was he wanted her job, and from the sound of it, today might be the day he got his wish. I've seen enough of your dramatics, Amaka. You think being sharp-tongued makes you qualified? We're losing clients, and all you've brought is noise and attitude. She stood stiff, eyes burning, lip trembling. Tunde watched from a corner, something hot building in his chest. He knew that look. The look of someone fighting to keep from crumbling. She turned slightly and saw him again. He started to walk away, but her voice stopped him. "Janitor," she called, "come mop this mess." There was no mess, just tension hanging in the air. But he went. As he knelt down, pretending to clean, she looked down at him like he was nothing, just like before. But this time he saw something flicker. Guilt, maybe, or regret. "Your boss talks too much," he said quietly. "Maybe if he worked as hard as he talks, you'd have your contract back." Amaka stared. "You've been eavesdropping?" "No, just listening." He looked up. Big difference. She gave him a long, hard look. Then, against every rule she had set for herself, she smiled. It was crooked, tired, but real. That evening, something even stranger happened. He found a sandwich on his mop bucket, neatly wrapped, egg and sardine, his favorite. He looked around, no one in sight, but he had a feeling. The next week passed in small glances, brief nods, and random moments that felt like they mattered more than they should. He'd sweep near her office, and she'd pretend not to notice, but she'd talk, just loud enough for him to hear. He once left a flower on her desk, a wild hibiscus he found by the car park. The next day, it was sitting in a glass of water, but then came the twist. The company's anniversary gala was announced. A high-end affair with press, clients, even international investors. Tunda's father, Chief Olalekan, was flying in from London just to attend, and every department was buzzing with gossip about the return of the mysterious heir no one had ever seen. Rumors flew that he was a spoiled brat, that he was disfigured, that he lived abroad because he hated Nigeria. No one really knew, and no one suspected the man pushing the cleaning cart through the hallways could be him. But things took a turn when Uche cornered Amaka one afternoon near the break room. "I heard about the gala. You better dress nice, Amaka. Who knows, maybe you'll catch the heir's eye. Wouldn't that be your last shot at saving your job?" She rolled her eyes. "If he's anything like his father, he's probably old, fat, and arrogant." Tunda, walking past with his mop, nearly choked on his breath. She turned to him. "You coming to the party, mop boy?" He smirked. "Maybe. I clean up well." She laughed, shaking her head. "You? In a suit? That I'd love to see." He looked her dead in the eye. "Careful what you wish for." She stared at him. For the first time, she didn't see the uniform. She saw a man who was hiding something, and the truth was about to come crashing down like a storm over the Lagos skyline. The night of the Adefemi Holdings anniversary gala arrived like a thunderclap, bold, loud, and full of expectations. The Echo Hotel ballroom sparkled with chandeliers, voices, and clinking glasses. Every chair was wrapped in gold satin, every table decorated with imported lilies, and every guest dressed to the nines: celebrities, politicians, international investors, old money, new money, and whispers everywhere about the mysterious heir making his debut tonight. Amaka stood near the champagne fountain in a wine-red gown, slit high on one side, her black curls pinned into a regal crown of defiance. Her makeup was sharp, her smile was fake, and her nerves were on fire. She was tired of proving herself in a world built by men who thought power belonged in their pockets and women belonged in silence. Tonight wasn't about celebration, it was survival. One wrong move and Uche would have her job by morning. "Looking expensive tonight," he hissed in her ear as he passed. "Don't worry. When they fire you, I'll still give you a seat." At reception, she didn't answer. She was too busy scanning the room. Where was Mop Boy? She didn't know why she cared. But she did. He said he cleaned up well. She'd hoped, no, expected, a glimpse of him. A final laugh before she buried the foolish attraction once and for all. But then the whispers began. "He's here, is that him? The son? He's younger than I expected." And when Tunde walked in, it was like silence fell just to watch. Black tuxedo, crisp white shirt, no tie. A quiet confidence in every step. No grand entrance, no entourage, just presence. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on her. Amaka. Her wineglass nearly slipped from her hand. No way. But there was no mistaking it. The same eyes, the same calm, the same quiet smile that now curved slightly, like a joke only. He understood. She blinked, once, twice. He walked toward her slowly, deliberately, ignoring the fawning guests and outstretched hands. She stood frozen as he stopped 2 feet in front of her. "Evening," he said. Her voice came out hoarse. "You're—" "Yes. But you're the janitor." "Was." His smile deepened. "Tonight I'm the heir." Her mind raced. Every insult, every sideways glance, every time she called him Mop Boy. Shame crawled up her neck like heat. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you. You watched me humiliate myself. I watched you be yourself." She swallowed hard. So this was all a test? Some sick social experiment to see who treated the poor guy with dignity? No. His voice softened. "I just wanted to be seen for something other than money." Her lip trembled. She hated that it did. "You think showing up like this makes you noble?" "No. It just makes me honest." She turned away. But he caught her wrist gently. "You think I wanted this to happen? That I planned to fall for the most stubborn, sharp-mouthed woman in the entire company?" Her breath caught. "I fell for you when you didn't even know I existed," he whispered. "Even after you insulted me. Even when you left me that sandwich and pretended it wasn't from you." She laughed once, bitter. "You think this is romantic? You humiliated me." "No," he said calmly. "I humbled you." She stared at him, hurt, furious, confused, then turned and walked away. The gala went on. Speeches, awards, a toast from Chief Olalekan. But Amaka sat outside on the balcony, breathing in humid Lagos air, trying not to cry. He joined her 20 minutes later. Silent. No tuxedo jacket, just a man now, not an heir. "You broke something," she said quietly. He nodded. "I know. I don't trust you." "I don't blame you." She looked at him. "What happens now?" He leaned against the railing beside her. "You tell me." She scoffed. "So I'm supposed to fall at your feet now? Call you sir? Marry into money and pretend none of this ever happened?" "No." He looked her dead in the eyes. "You're supposed to decide whether you want to love a man or hate a mask." She bit her lip, trembling, and for the first time there was no pride left between them, just truth, and it was heavier than any lie. The next morning felt colder than usual, even though the Lagos sun still blazed down like it owed no one mercy. Amaka sat alone in her tiny flat in Surulere, staring at her phone. 10 missed calls. Tunde. Or was that even his real name? She hated how much space he took in. Her mind. Even more. She hated that she couldn't stop replaying every moment. Every conversation, every stupid smile they shared. She'd fallen, willingly, foolishly, for a man she thought was beneath her, only to find out he was far above her. And now, she didn't know which betrayal stung more, his silence or her own judgment. She threw on jeans and a hoodie, barely, brushing her hair and headed to work. She had no plan, just instinct. The gossip had already spread like wildfire. People had seen them talking at the gala. Whispers followed her through the lobby like smoke trailing fire. She was close to the heir. Bet she's trying to lock him down now. No wonder she acts so high and mighty. Amaka didn't flinch. She'd learned a long time ago how to walk through storms with her head high. But what she didn't expect was the memo waiting on her desk. Urgent. Meeting with Chief Olalekan Adefemi, 10 a.m. She froze. The founder himself? No one met with Chief unless you were getting promoted or fired. 10 sharp. She stepped into the glass office overlooking the entire building. The view stretched across Lagos, tall and full of power. The chief sat in a dark agbada, gold embroidery gleaming like royalty. Beside him sat Tunde, silent, composed. "Sit," the chief said. She obeyed. "You've made quite the impression, Miss Amaka," he said, voice deep and unreadable. She blinked. "Sir, You're talented, bold, ruthless even. But you're reckless." Her throat tightened. "You've been the best and the worst PR manager we've had in years. And your relationship with my son complicates things." She glanced at Tunda, who didn't meet her eyes. "I didn't know he was your son," she said quietly. "I believe you." The chief leaned forward. "But now you do. And now I ask, do you want to stay in this company, or do you want to date my heir?" Her stomach dropped. "What? You can't do both." Tunde finally spoke. "Dad, no." Olalekan cut him off. "This company is not a playground for romantic drama. She wants power. She can have it. But not if she's also sleeping with the future CEO. Amaka stood. "I am not sleeping with your son." Olalekan stared at her coldly. "Yet." Silence filled the room. She looked at Tunda, voice shaking. "Did you know this would happen?" "No." "I swear." But something in her broke. The walls she built came crashing down, not from love, but from shame. She'd fought for every inch of respect she had, and now, because of a man's secret, she was suddenly reduced to a question mark. "Then what are we, Tunde?" she asked bitterly. "Just a story to laugh about later? The janitor who tricked the mean girl?" He stood too, eyes blazing. "You think I was laughing? You think this was a joke to me?" She turned to Olalekan. "You want me to choose?" "Yes." She looked back at Tunde, heart breaking in her chest. "I choose neither." She walked out, not just out of the office, out of the company, out of everything, and as the doors closed behind her, she didn't cry. Not yet. But Tunde did. For the first time in years, because he realized too late. He hadn't just hidden the truth. He'd buried something real beneath the lies. 3 weeks. That's how long it had been since Amaka walked out of Adefemi Holdings and out of Tunda's life. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't return messages. She disappeared from the corporate world like smoke in the wind. And Tunde, he was a ghost of the man who walked into that gala. He stopped showing up at executive meetings. He turned down interviews, deals, proposals. His father raged, accusing him of being soft like his mother. But Tunda didn't care. He'd built a palace of lies, and the woman he built it for had torched it with 5 words. "I choose neither. I'm done." He missed her. Not the version in heels and sarcasm, but the one who left him a sandwich when he was just a janitor. The one who saw pain in him when no one else did. Meanwhile, in a cramped one-room apartment in Yaba, Amaka was rebuilding herself from scratch. She'd applied for jobs. Most rejected her. The few who didn't wanted to use her connection to Tunde as leverage. She refused all of them. She was many things, but a ladder climber wasn't one. Days were quiet. Nights were worse. Her pride told her she made the right decision. But her heart wondered if maybe, for once, she should have stayed. Then one Thursday evening, she got a knock on her door. She peeked through the curtain and nearly choked. It was Tunde, no driver, no suit, just jeans, a plain shirt, and a bouquet of wild flowers that looked like they'd been picked from a roadside. She opened the door a crack. "I'm not interested in rich apologies." He didn't smile. "Good. I didn't bring one." "What do you want?" "To tell you the truth." She opened the door just wide enough for him to step inside. "You have 5 minutes," she said coldly. He looked around. Bare mattress, second-hand fan, single gas burner. Her life laid out in fragments. It humbled him. "I didn't come to defend what I did," he said slowly. "I came because I realized something. You were right. I was pretending to be someone else. Not just to test others, but to protect myself, and in the process, I hurt the only person I didn't want to lose." Amaka folded her arms. "You say all the right things now. Where was this honesty before your father gave me an ultimatum?" Tunde stepped closer. "I didn't know he would do that, and if I did, I would have walked out with you." She narrowed her eyes. "Why didn't you?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Because I didn't think you wanted me to." The silence between them was raw. "I'm not one of those girls you can just impress with flowers and feelings, Tunde. I know. I want to build my name, my own legacy, without your billions." "I know. So why are you here?" He took a deep breath. "Because I don't want to own a company where the woman I love feels like she has to choose between dignity and affection." Amaka blinked. He continued, "So I'm stepping down. Let my cousin run it. Or let it burn. I'll start my own thing on my own terms. Maybe I'll even be a janitor again." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You'd do that? For you?" He laughed gently. "I already lost you once. I don't need to be rich to feel poor again." And then, finally, her walls cracked. Tears welled up no matter how hard she fought them. She didn't say yes, didn't throw herself into his arms, but she stepped forward, took the flowers, and said quietly, "I'll make us tea." And that was enough. Because sometimes, the richest love stories are brewed in chipped cups in tiny kitchens. The tea boiled on a single-burner stove, the sound filling the silence between them like a quiet drum. Amaka moved around the tiny kitchen, without looking at Tunde, but her hands shook as she reached for the cups. He noticed, of course he did, but said nothing. Some things needed time, and some wounds, even when healing, still burned. "So," she said, stirring sugar into both. "Mugs, you're really stepping down?" He nodded. "I already told my father. He thinks I've lost my mind." She passed him a mug and sat across from him at the small table that doubled as a desk, a dining surface, and sometimes her ironing board. "Maybe you have." He chuckled softly. "Probably. But I'd rather lose my father's approval than lose myself again." She sipped quietly. The tea wasn't anything fancy, just Lipton, too much sugar, and a splash of evaporated milk, but it tasted different tonight. Maybe because of who she was drinking it with, or who he'd finally chosen to become. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. Tunde shrugged. "I have some savings. Thought about starting something small, maybe a cleaning service." Her eyebrow arched. "You? After you mopped floors for 3 months, you want to turn it into a business?" "I respect that. Job now. I respect the people who do it. And I learned a lot." She paused, then nodded once. You were always better with that mop than the guys on my floor. High praise, he smirked. She rolled her eyes, but smiled for real this time. Still, beneath that smile, something lingered. A wall not fully gone. Why me, Tunda? Her voice lowered. You could have picked any woman, rich, educated, polished. Someone who fits into your world. I didn't want someone who fits, he said gently. I wanted someone who challenged it. She looked away. You saw me at my lowest, he continued. When you thought I had nothing, you still gave me something. A sandwich, a moment, a chance. I insulted you more than I helped you. He shook his head. No, you were honest. You treated me like I mattered, sometimes in harsh ways, but never fake. Everyone else was either cruel or pretending to. Be kind. You were just real. Amaka swallowed hard. You scare me, she whispered. I know. You make me want things I've trained myself not to want. I want them too. She looked at him then. Really looked. And for the first time, she didn't see the heir. She didn't see the janitor. She saw the man, flawed, raw, choosing. Her when he could have chosen easier. Do you think we'll make it? She asked. I think we'll fight. I think we'll clash. But I also think, if we're honest, if we stay grounded, we'll be more than fine. He reached out. Slow. Careful. Like someone who knew what it was to lose. She let him take her hand. I don't need your money, Tunda. I don't want to give you money. I want to give you me. The words weren't poetic. They were clumsy, a little awkward, but they struck deeper than any gift he could have brought. That night, he didn't stay. He walked home under the street lights, past Danfo's and roadside suya stalls, smiling like a madman. He felt light, and Amaka, left alone in her tiny room, didn't feel lonely. For the first time in years, she felt wanted. Not for beauty, not for brains, not for ambition, just for being Amaka. 3 months later, the world hadn't gotten any kinder, but Tunde and Amaka had gotten stronger. They didn't move into mansions or fly off to Paris. Instead, they built slow, steady. Tunde launched his cleaning company, True Wipe Solutions, with just 3 employees, 2 mops, and a vision. Amaka went back into freelance PR, taking small contracts from local businesses who cared more about results than her last name. They were still in Yaba, still making tea on a single burner, still arguing about whether sardine belonged in jollof rice. Tunde said no, Amaka swore it was tradition. But between them, something had shifted. Respect. And something else too. Noise from the outside world. It started with an article in City Pulse magazine, a full spread on Tunde's business pivot, his fall from inheritance, and his scandalous relationship with a former employee. It wasn't even accurate, but accuracy never made headlines. The moment the piece dropped, the vultures came circling. A phone call from Tunde's mother was the first storm. So, this is how you shame the family? You left the company to chase a woman who insulted you? She didn't insult me. She showed me the truth. I didn't raise you for truth, Tunde. I raised you to lead. He hung up quietly. Then came the corporate snubs. Old friends from his elite circles stopped returning his calls. Investors treated his new company like a joke. One even asked if he was doing community service. And finally, Chief Olalekan called. I'm dying, he said over the phone. Tunde froze. What? Not literally. But legacy-wise, you're killing everything I built. Tunde drove to the family estate that same day. Marble floors, imported leather, ancestral portraits, everything he'd grown up resenting. His father met him, in the study, whiskey in hand. I'll keep this simple, Chief Olalekan began. Come back. Take over. Be the man I groomed you to be. Tunde shook his head. I already am that man. You just don't like how I'm doing it. You think building some mop business makes you noble? You're throwing away an empire. No, he said firmly. I'm building one that's mine. And the girl. You're really still with her? Tunde stared his father down. Yes. And if that's a problem, then maybe I was never the heir you wanted. Olalekan laughed bitterly. You think she'll stay? When the struggle gets real? When the cameras stop? Women like her love a challenge until it gets too hard. She's not staying because of what I have. She stayed when I had nothing. You'll regret this. No, Tunde said, standing. I'd regret not choosing her. That night he told Amaka everything. She didn't cry, didn't panic. She just exhaled deeply and sat beside him on the edge of their bed. So, we're officially the black sheep? He laughed. Pretty much. Good. I never liked the herd anyway. But even with her strength, he saw the toll it was taking. The judgment. The whispers. The way some clients now eyed her like she was sleeping her way to success. He wrapped his arms around her tightly. We don't have to prove anything, he whispered. Just be us. And for a while, that was enough. But the world doesn't leave people like them alone. Not for long, because just as things began to settle, someone from Amaka's past came back, someone who knew her deepest secret and was ready to use it. The past doesn't knock politely. It crashes in like a thief. For Amaka, it arrived as a message from an unknown number. Still acting like you're clean? You think I forgot? We both know who you used to be. No name, no emoji. Just a reminder. Sharp, cold, real. She stared at it, heart thudding. She hadn't spoken about that chapter in years. Not to anyone. Not even Tunde. Not because she was ashamed, at least not anymore, but because some things were better buried than judged. But now someone wanted to dig up her dirt. She didn't reply. She didn't even flinch. But it haunted her. For 2 days, she avoided telling Tunde. He was already juggling too much, fighting to keep True Wipe afloat, dodging his father's power plays, and building their future brick by fragile brick. But the past doesn't wait. On the 3rd day, she walked into their tiny apartment and found him sitting on the floor, laptop open, eyes bloodshot. Did you know someone's been emailing our clients? He asked, voice too calm to be normal. She blinked. What? Anonymous emails, saying you used to run scams, that you were part of a fake grant scheme back in school, that you're not trustworthy. Her stomach turned. Tunde, is it true? She hesitated. That hesitation broke something. You should have told me, he whispered. I didn't think it mattered anymore. It was years ago. I didn't even scam anyone. I was used, Tunde. I was 19, naive. I signed papers. For a boyfriend who turned out to be a fraud. I took the blame when he ran. I lost my scholarship. I lost everything. I rebuilt from the ground up. His expression didn't change. She stepped closer. I didn't lie to you. I just left it behind. Like you left behind the suits and the glass office. That's different. No, she said, eyes fierce. It's the same. We both ran from who we were. He looked down. I just needed to know, he said quietly. Her heart cracked. So what now? You need time, space, you're questioning everything again? No. He looked up. I'm going to find who did this, because anyone trying this hard to destroy you must be terrified of your rise. And that's when it clicked. The message, the timing, the sudden smear campaign. She whispered the name like a curse. Uche, her former boss. The man who'd tried to sabotage her at Adafemi Holdings, the one who wanted her job and never forgave her, for getting close to the heir. He had the motive, the ego, and the connections. The next day, they confronted him. He sat across from them at a cafe in Victoria Island, sunglasses on, smiling like the devil on a good day. I don't know what, "You're talking about," he said smoothly. Tunda leaned in. "You really want a war with me?" Uchi smirked. "You already declared it, Prince. You just didn't know how deep it would cut." Amaka stood. "I survived worse than you. I built myself from ruins. You're still playing politics in buildings you didn't create. You'll always be beneath me." Uche's smile faltered. And just like that, the power shifted. Days later, they released a joint statement, Amaka telling her story, raw and unfiltered. She shared how she was framed, how she survived, and how she rebuilt her career with nothing but grit. The article went viral, not because of scandal, but because of truth. Clients came back. Some even offered new contracts. Tunde's company started getting buzz, not just for its service, but for its story. Two broken people, one honest love, zero shame. That night, as the rain tapped gently on their windows, Amaka curled into Tunde's chest and whispered, "You still think it was worth it? Giving it all up?" He kissed her forehead. "I didn't give up anything. I found everything." And outside, Lagos kept moving, fast, loud, cruel. But inside, in their small rented flat with secondhand furniture and tea that never tasted quite right, they had peace. They had love. They had each other, and that was more than enough.